Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer. Today we're going to unpack 126 years of history to figure out exactly how FC Bayern Munich built this incredible, self-repairing machine that absolutely dominates European football. Because it's not just about the fact that they win, it's about the relentless, almost inevitable nature of their winning over decades.
So, let's kick things off with the 4 syllables of defiance that serve as their cultural shield against literally every single setback they face. Mia san mia. Translated from the Bavarian dialect, it means, we are who we are. But as our source material explains, this isn't just some catchy marketing motto or a simple boast. It's a statement of identity so complete and so unshakable that it leaves absolutely no room for existential doubt. It is the psychological bedrock of everything they do. And today, we're going to explore this dynasty block by block to answer one core question. Why does this club always come back stronger from defeat?
Here's the game plan for today. We'll be covering We Are Who We Are, Forged by Rejection, Building the Global Business, the Tactical Revolutions, the Modern Record Breakers, and finally, the secret to the dynasty.
All right, jumping right into part 1, We Are Who We Are, and the mindset of permanent dominance.
To really wrap our heads around the sheer scale of this operation, we first have to understand how losing is processed at Bayern. It is not viewed as a failure, guys, but merely as a temporary inconvenience. Their baseline expectation is this number right here, 35. That is the number of Bundesliga titles they've claimed to date. Add to that 6 European Cups, a historic treble winning all 3 major seasonal trophies, and an unprecedented 6-trophy sextuple. This number is literally the physical manifestation of Mia san mia. It shows that inside this organization, they don't just hope to win, they assume they will.
Moving on to part 2, Forged by Rejection, and the origins of a super club.
Now this relentless, uncompromising drive we see today, it was actually born out of profound rejection and historical hardship. They started pretty humbly back in 1900, founded by 11 guys at a Munich spot called Café Gisela, who just wanted to play this new English game. Fast forward a bit to 1932, and they win their very first national championship. But look at what happens in 1963. When the modern professional Bundesliga was formed, Bayern Munich was completely excluded. They were just left behind in the second tier. Former executive Uli Hoeness later admitted that this stinging humiliation gave them a massive chip on their shoulder. It planted this obsessive, us-against-them determination to prove themselves to the world.
But even before that exclusion, the club survived a truly dark period. Under the National Socialist government, their visionary Jewish president, Kurt Landauer, the guy who actually built that first championship team, was forced out in 1933. By 1938, he was arrested and sent to the Dachau concentration camp. Astonishingly, he survived, escaped to Switzerland, and then in 1947, he actually returned to a ruined Munich to help rebuild the club from the absolute rubble. That kind of deeply ingrained resilience, it became a permanent part of the club's DNA.
Which brings us to part 3, Building the Global Business, the 1970s and 80s evolution.
By the time we hit the 70s and 80s, that post-war grit had transformed into a highly systematic corporate entity, led by visionaries off the pitch and era-defining players on it. And the result on the pitch was this absolutely absurd number, 365. That's the record amount of Bundesliga goals scored by Gerd Dubaumer Müller. Alongside the legendary Franz Beckenbauer, Müller was the engine of a team that delivered 3 consecutive European Cups in the mid-1970s. I mean, they were virtually unstoppable. They perfectly blended Beckenbauer's elegant structure from the back with Müller's devastating mechanical efficiency up front.
But you really see their incredible bounce-back ability when tragedy strikes. Take a look at the 1999 Camp Nou heartbreak. Bayern's conceded 2 injury-time goals to Manchester United to lose the Champions League final in just the most devastating way imaginable. Players literally collapsed on the pitch, but they didn't fold. Just 2 years later, we see a fierce redemption at the San Siro. Goalkeeper Oliver Kahn makes 3 massive penalty saves to win the final and drag that trophy back to Munich.
Actually, think about this for a second. It took exactly 180 seconds to lose absolutely everything in Barcelona in 1999. But that exact agonizing trauma fueled a decade of obsessive psychological reconstruction. Kahn, in particular, carried that ghost with him, channeling his fury into an unbending will to win. They literally used their deepest scars as high-octane fuel.
All right, part 4, the Tactical Revolutions, Upgrading the Machine.
Heading into the modern era, Bayern's leadership realized pretty quickly that relying purely on grit and individual brilliance just wasn't going to cut it anymore in a rapidly globalizing sport. They had to completely reinvent how the game was played. First up, you have Jupp Heynckes. He brought unbelievable defensive organization and mechanical efficiency, delivering a historic treble in 2013. But instead of just resting on their laurels, Bayern immediately brought in Pep Guardiola. He turned Munich into a tactical laboratory.
totally focused on ball control and fluid positioning. Guardiola fundamentally raised the technical floor of the entire club, leaving behind a squad of incredibly intelligent footballers.
So the crucial point here is how this deep tactical foundation saved them when crisis hit again. Look at this sequence from late 2019. First, they fall to 5th in the Bundesliga, which is an absolute disaster by their standards. Then, they appoint a quiet assistant, Hansi Flick, as interim manager. And what does Flick do? He simply takes the structural intelligence left over from Guardiola, adds a ruthlessly aggressive high press, and unleashes it to win an impossible 6-trophy sweep. They literally turned a mid-season crisis into the greatest year in their entire history.
Which takes us to part 5, the modern record breakers, where the machine outlives the individuals.
Now, Flick's eventual departure could have easily derailed an ordinary club, but the 2020s proved that the Bayern machine always outlives its moving parts. They don't rebuild, they simply reload. To put their ruthless efficiency into perspective, just look at this stat: 8-2. That was their total destruction of Barcelona during the 2020 Champions League run. An 8-2 scoreline in a single knockout match defies all logic at the elite level of the sport. It's a statement of absolute, terrifying dominance. It is a machine operating at maximum capacity without an ounce of mercy.
And what's truly mind-blowing is that they are still accelerating. Fast forward to the 2025-2026 season. Under a surprise managerial choice in Vincent Kompany, and fueled by the relentless scoring of Harry Kane, they smashed the all-time record by scoring 109 goals in a single Bundesliga campaign. 109 goals! The machine was supposed to be in a transition phase, and yet they were busy totally rewriting the history books.
Finally, part 6, the secret to the dynasty. Why Bayern always comes back.
We've seen the history, the heartbreak, the tactical evolution, and the staggering numbers. So what is the actual secret behind a sports organization that treats major setbacks like mere pit stops on the road to victory? Well, it lies in these 3 core pillars. First, institutional design. Thanks to their early visionaries, they run like a flawless corporate structure designed to outlast any single charismatic leader or star player. Second, the talent pipeline. They masterfully blend developing homegrown youth with the strategic, ruthless recruitment of external stars. And finally, the culture. That Mia San Mia mindset. Inside this club, winning isn't an aspiration you hope for, it's a base assumption you work from.
And honestly, nothing sums up that culture better than this quote. Even after a deeply painful semi-final exit in the 2026 Champions League, manager Vincent Kompany stood before the press and delivered this eerily calm warning: there's more to come. He wasn't coping, and he wasn't making excuses. He knew full well that the machine wasn't broken. It was simply reloading its weapons for the very next cycle.
So, I'm going to leave you with this provocative thought to chew on as we wrap up this explainer today. If this is what FC Bayern Munich looks like when they're supposedly just rebuilding, scoring 109 goals and breaking historic records, how much more terrifying will their inevitable next peak be? Thanks so much for tuning in, and keep questioning what it takes to build a true dynasty.